There we go. That was a young man in my class who's not supposed to speak out loud. We're officially running now. So be quiet, please. Thank you. If you have questions, that's one thing. This is different. Today we're going to be developing reading fluency and reading endurance for my class. Be real. All right, I'm Mr. Frank. I work at CCA, 6th grade literature and science. Today is Wednesday, February 12th, and we're talking about developing reading fluency. Fluency is the ability to be able to read and understand the words you read, right? Each word. So today, we're going to be focusing on our book, The Scarlet Pimpernel, and we're going to read chapter 9, pages 71 and 72, just an excerpt from that. So I'm going to grab my book. We're going to read together. Pages 71 for you and 72 for you. For me, it's 72, 73. A beautiful starlit night had followed on the day of incessant rain. A cool, balmy, late summer's night, essentially English in its suggestion of moisture and scent of wet earth and dripping leaves. The magnificent coach, drawn by 4 of the finest thoroughbreds in England, had driven off along the London road, with Sir Percy Blakeney on the box, holding the reins in his slender, feminine hands, and beside him, Lady Blakeney, wrapped in costly furs. A 50-mile drive on a starlit summer's night. Marguerite had hailed the notion of it with delight. Sir Percy with an enthusiastic whip. His 4 thoroughbreds, which had been sent down to Dover a couple of days before, were just sufficiently fresh and restive to add zest to the expedition, and Marguerite reveled in anticipation of the few hours of solitude. With the soft night breeze fanning her cheeks, her thoughts wandering whither away. She knew from old experience that Sir Percy would speak little, if at all. He had often driven her on his beautiful coach for hours at night, from point to point, without making more than 1 or 2 casual remarks upon the weather or the state of the roads. He was very fond of driving by night, and she had very quickly adopted his fancy. As she sat next to him, hour after hour, admiring the dexterous, certain way in which he handled the reins, she often wondered what went on in that slow-going head of his. He never told her, and she never asked. We're going to stop there. It's a lot to take in about our characters, Sir Percy Blakeney and Lady Blakeney. But today we're going to focus on a word that has come up in the past, and we're going to talk about it. Before we do, when we look at this text, we always ask you to look for repeated words, right? Always. So we look first for repeated words. We write down the words which are unfamiliar to you. You probably don't want to do that, but you mark them. So I encourage you to write down words unfamiliar. Okay? When that happens, write them down. So when we're done reading, you can do that. I'm teaching for real. This is not just for my video. This is for real. I need you guys to understand that, because it is important to me that you, if you find a word unfamiliar, write it down. First thing. Okay? Second thing. Ask 2 or 3 questions you have about the text. We do that regularly. We have our poster up here to remind you to do that, to write 2 or 3 questions. All right? And we want to know the meaning of each word. Some of the words we read, we did not really focus on. Like his feminine hands. There was a lot said in that. Did you notice it? His feminine hands. There's a lot that the author is saying. We're not focusing on that today, but it's important to catch those things, not to miss those moments of what the author is saying. Next is look for context clues. When we look at today's work, we're looking for context clues. What can the context of those words tell us? And then we're also looking for the central idea of that text we read. I know we look at chapters, central ideas, but there was a central idea in that text that was helping you see things that later will come to light. Very important, okay? So we move on, and the word we're looking at is thoroughbred. That's a word that I want to look at today. It's thoroughbred, okay? And we're going to talk today about orthography. We don't do that much, and you're going to be surprised that as the 6th grade science teacher actually can review some orthography. All right? That's going to be kind of fun. So first, thoroughbred is a compound word. 2 words together, compound word. Very important to understand that. The compound word, thoroughbred, is a word that doesn't make sense if you don't have context. Right? Is that true? Because we asked that question, we didn't see it. So the first word is thorough. It's a very interesting word, thorough. When you break it apart and you look at it, how many syllables? 2 syllables. Very good. You guys have done this before. I'm glad. Those of you who've been in our school for 5 years, you've been practicing this in orthography all the time. All right. And the first digraph is what? We have both pronunciations. Remember? In orthography, we go ahead and make that sound, both the sounds of TH. Then our next is the of worms. The of worms, right? Because the word is thorough. Is it thorough? Thorough? Thorough. So it's the of worms. And then, this is my favorite. This is where I am going to step off the page and ask you to do it. Remember the steps? How many of you can do that? How many of you can do it? Let's do it. Start it off. Ow, o, oo, Ow, o, oo. So there are 6 total. So I'm checking out, because I teach science and literature, and I don't deal with this now, well-word language or orthography. I'm checking out where you are. There are 6. So this one is which one? Is it owl or o? Thorough. So it's very important we understand as we look at the word. Now, I know that word's familiar to you, like, okay, Mr. Frank, we had thorough. I get it. But the problem is we have a compound word. And as we look at that word, we look at the second part, which is bread. It's a compound word, bread. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word bread? Food, right? Yeah, a sandwich. Exactly. So I want to stop and think there's something missing, right? In bread? Thank you. Yeah, there's a whole different meaning to this thing. So how many syllables is bread? 1 syllable. Excellent. Some of y'all have done orthography. I love that. Our 6th graders have done orthography. Well done. All right. So we start with the digraph. Br. Not bruh. Br. Br. Right? So we start with bruh. And then the root word is breed. So if it were the word breed, the root word, how would we take on that sound in the middle? E always says E. Always says E. So for the root, it would be breed. So there's the problem. If we don't realize that's the root, that's an issue for us. So we've got to make sure we understand the root. And then in bread, what are the 2 sounds we make for E? E. So is it breed or bread? Bread, which takes us back to thinking about sandwiches. Right? However, the ending of that sound is, y'all remember when you first started doing orthography? We'd go through the sounds, and somebody in the room would always go, duh, instead of duh. Duh, right? It's not bread, duh, bread, right? So as we sound these things out, we got to make sure. It is a homophone for the word bread. Sounds the same, but totally different meaning. So what does it mean? What does the word bread mean?
Like the type, or like.
Okay. All right.
Type of a dog or type of something.
Type of something, okay.
Raised.
Okay.
Type of animal.
Type of animal, okay. So we have an idea behind that. And I'm not saying your names on purpose, okay? I'm not trying to not say your name today. I'm just not going to say them on purpose. So your hand goes up and now you're like, yes, ma'am. Species, I like it. Oh, bring science into it. Well done. I like that. So this homophone bread is not the same as this word bread. The word bread means there's something there. So as we look at that, the difference between the 2 words is completely different. If you spelled the word B-R-E-D when you wanted to have a sandwich, oops. All right, we're going to move on. Thoroughbred. How many times was this word used on the page? Look back and see how many times you used it. Thank you all. Let everybody catch up for a second. Okay. Well done. All right, some are still catching up. I love that you're looking in the text. That's excellent. You're not looking around to see what your friend said. I like that. Actually looking in the text. Well done. No, it's not 5. All right, most of you have. It's 2 times, right? So is that something you should have noted? Especially if you didn't know what it was, you should have noted that. It's mentioned 2 times in the text. So you've got to understand that word. And just as to give you some reference, when we first read this, we went around the room and no one knew what the word was. If you don't remember, that's why we're doing this today. Because I wanted to help you with that context. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. All right? In isolation, by itself, what does the word mean? Thorough. What does it mean? See, again, I know that you have that answer now because we've gone over the word because we did that. But now, today, what's happening is, I want you to think back when we asked person after person and no one knew what the word meant. It does now, but at first we couldn't. What did we have to do to discover what the word meant? Not really. That didn't help. Nope.
Use context.
Context clues. We needed to have context clues. If we're unsure, we look for context clues. Context clues, we look for the words before. Yeah, I did a bunch of them. Look for the words before and after. And then what's the meaning of those words? Do they provide context for the unknown word? That's the big question. So go back right now and look and see if you can find the proof of the context. Right now. Go before and after those 2 times it's used and see if you can find it in the text. In your book. Looking in the book right now. Looking in the book, the context. I'm not ready for the answer anything yet. I want you looking right now, just making sure, because we're doing an exercise today that helps us. Because what's going to happen is, in the chapter we read next time, you're going to come upon a word you don't understand. And I am not wanting you to picture just the word today. I want to teach you a concept that you can use, called context clues. So, the question I'm asking is, as you look in the book, does the book provide context clues to help you? Yes or no? Okay. I'll take that. I'll take a half. I get it. Okay. That's good. Very important to understand because the context clues are huge. The word we're looking at today, we're mastering that word, okay? But there are going to be other words we'll come across that we will not have mastered yet. So based upon the context, we have to ask, what might the words mean? Initially, we struggled with this word. And so as we look at the word, we want to make sure, absolutely, that we understand. And the first step is your context clues. But remember, the dictionary is your friend. You can ask a friend, I'm okay with that, but the big thing for you to do is if you're not sure, go back to a dictionary, all right? We don't use computers every day here, so dictionaries are what we use, right? No? You don't use a dictionary? I know you're supposed to have a dictionary with you. I have 3 dictionaries on my shelf if you need them, okay? 3. Not 1, not 2, but 3. All right? So, what do we mean when we come to endurance? We're talking about now about totally different, not fluency, but now endurance. What is endurance?
Perseverance. Being able to get through something that's hard.
Okay, all right.
Doing it for a while but not getting tired. So doing it the same way as before.
Say that again.
Doing it the same way as you go through.
Okay, and you said something about your first part. You said, and not getting tired. Okay, someone else. Y'all are quiet. This is not normal. My first question is regarding reading endurance. First of all, some say to me at times, and maybe it's some of you, I don't like to read. I always say that's not true. Always. There is something that you like to read. Being transparent and honest, when I was in 6th grade, what I loved to read was graphic novels. I love graphic novels. Suddenly, yes, there is something I like to read. So that's the thing. Find what you like to read and read it. And graphic novels grow. If you go to the bookstore and you look in this section with graphic novels, you'll go from those with big panel pictures and few words, and then you'll graduate to where you can get to books that have more words in each panel, to where suddenly the graphic novels now become more stories. And I can tell you that I have done that, and I have read stories about Spider-Man and Superman, okay? Which is what I like to read. Batman, right?
Monkey.
And Snoopy. So, what do you like to read is a big question. we use a commonplace journal, right? We have our poster right here that's covering the genres that we're covering. And we don't have one of the genres that I was asked about earlier because it's in the other class teacher's room. So that's okay. We have our own plan. 3 myths, 5 fairy tales, 5 poems, a Newbery book, biography, Middle Ages. We have all these things we can use. And we use our commonplace journal. We're trying to read from 20 different genres. I hope that you're on board with that because there's a great thought. Mrs. Early, who is a phenomenal reading teacher, started us off in this plan. And there's a great help to doing that. The more genres you read, even though it's not comfortable, goes back to that endurance idea, you become better at it. So as an athlete, how do I increase endurance on the field? First, I attend practice every day, right? First time I tried out for football, I was in 7th grade we had back then junior high school. And the first day I tried out, I was trying out with 2 9th graders who were on the team before. It was the last day of tryouts, right? So we're trying out, and you don't believe it, but I was skinny. Skinny. And he had us run, and I started running. He said, keep on running. I kept running, and finally I came up, and I was talking to him for a second, and then I did that thing where I went, and threw up all over the ground. He said, now don't you feel better, go run. Had me run some more, so I came back, I threw up a second time. At the end of the day, he said to me, if I had a spot, I'd put you on here, because you are doing the work it takes to become good at football. But I have 2 9th graders who played before, I have 2 spots, I can't take you this year, come back next year. I never came back next year, I wish I had. But it was because of that endurance. He wanted to build endurance, so you run. You do the things that you don't want to. You work hard even when you don't want to, and you monitor your results. When you're an athlete and you're running, you're taking a stopwatch to see how quickly you can run, right? Each time, you're trying to get faster, trying to get better, trying to make your endurance better. Do you have a goal? So I'm talking about athleticism, but I want to bring it back to the endurance, because the endurance of reading. If you don't like to read, read a page. Next day, read a page. Next day, read a page. If you don't like reading a page, read a paragraph. If you don't like reading a paragraph, read a sentence. You got to get there. If you don't like reading, you're going to need to read in your lifetime. Let me tell you, it will hurt you if you don't read. So very important. Today's lesson, I'm asking if you have questions, but I don't want you to ask them out loud. What we're going to do is we're going to do an exit ticket. There's the exit ticket. Aha! Yes, an exit ticket. Of course, an exit ticket. Oh, it's kind of fun, exit ticket. It's cute. It's small and cute. If you've not turned me off by now, Teachy, my teacher, I'm probably going over my time. I forgot to start my timer, so this is how I roll. All right.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. First person said thank you for my exit ticket. Well done. The rest of you are like, thank you. Whatever, man. Thank you. All right. Give you about 1 minute to do it. It's not a long exit ticket. It's got 3 questions and then a fill-in if you have questions, okay? So first question is, which of the following is correct? Use of thoroughbred. Second question, what can I do to help me read fluently? Third question, how can I increase my reading endurance? 2 and 3 are select alls. To see if you were paying attention. And that'll do it for this entry.